Welcome back to First Chapter Fridays, where I will read the first chapter of a book in hopes that you will read the rest on your own. This week's book is in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month. Hispanic Heritage Month is celebrated every year on September 15th through October 15th. It traditionally honors the cultures and contributions of both Hispanic and Latino Americans. The story that I will share is an oldie but goodie. It's called Esperanza Rising by Pam Munoz Ryan. It's a story about a girl named Esperanza who thought she'd always live a privileged life on her family's farm in Mexico. She'd always have fancy dresses, a beautiful home filled with servants, and Mama, Papa, and Abuela to take care of her. But a sudden tragedy forces Esperanza and her mom to flee to California and settle in a Mexican farm labor camp. Esperanza is not ready for the hard work and struggles she now faces. But when Mama gets sick and a strike for better working conditions threatens to uproot their new life, Esperanza must find a way to rise above her difficult circumstances because Mama's life and her own depends on it. Please enjoy the first chapter and a half of Esperanza Rising. 1924, Aguascalientes, Mexico. "Our land is alive, Esperanza," said Papa, taking her small hand as they walked through the gentle slopes of the vineyard. Leafy green vines draped the arbors and the grapes were ready to drop. Esperanza was 6 years old and loved to walk with her papa through the winding rows, gazing up at him and watching his eyes dance with love for the land. "This whole valley breathes and lives," he said, sweeping his arm towards the distant mountains that guarded them. "It gives us the grapes, and then they welcome us." He gently touched a wild tendril that reached into the row, as if it had been waiting to shake his hand. He picked up a handful of earth and studied it. "Did you know that when you lie down on the land, you can feel it breathe? That you can feel its heart beating?" "Papi, I want to feel it," she said. "Come." They walked to the end of the row. The incline of the land formed a grassy swell. Papa lay down on his stomach and looked up at her, patting the ground next to him. Esperanza smoothed her dress and knelt down. Then, like a caterpillar, she slowly inched flat next to him, their faces looking at each other. The warm sun pressed on one of Esperanza's cheeks, and the warm earth on the other. She giggled. "Shh," he said. "You can feel the earth's heartbeat when you are still and quiet." She swallowed her laughter and after a moment said, "I can't hear it, papi." "Agua tantito e la fruta cara en tu mano," he said. "Wait a little while and the fruit will fall into your hand. You must be patient, Esperanza." She waited and lay silent, watching Papa's eyes. And then she felt it, softly at first, a gentle thumping, then stronger, a resounding thud, thud, thud against her body. She can hear it too, the beat rushing in her ears. Shoom, shoom, shoom. She stared at Papa, not wanting to say a word, not wanting to lose the sound, not wanting to forget the feel of the heart of the valley. She pressed closer to the ground until her body was breathing with the earth's and with Papa's, the three hearts beating together. She smiled at Papa, not needing to talk, her eyes saying everything, and his smile answered hers, telling her that he knew she had felt it. 6 years later, Las Uvas, grapes. Papa handed Esperanza the knife. The short blade was curved like a scythe, its fat wooden handle fitting snugly in her palm. This job was usually reserved for the eldest son of a wealthy rancher, but since Esperanza was an only child and Papa's pride and glory, she was always given the honor. Last night she had watched Papa sharpen the knife back and forth across the stone, so she knew this tool was edged like a razor. "Quede los dedos," said Papa. "Watch your fingers." The August sun promised a dry afternoon in Aguascalientes, Mexico. Everyone who lived and worked on El Rancho de la Rosa was gathered at the edge of the field. Esperanza's family, the house servants in their long white aprons, the vaquers already sitting on their horses ready to ride out to the cattle, and 50 or 60 campesinos, straw hats in their hands, holding their own knives. "Ready," They covered top to bottom in long-sleeved shirts, baggy pants tied at the ankles with string, and bandanas wrapped around their foreheads and necks to protect them from the sun, dust, and spiders. Esperanza, on the other hand, wore a light silk dress that stopped above her summer boots, and no hat. On top of her head, a wide satin ribbon was tied in a big bow, the tails trailing in her long black hair. The clusters were heavy on the vine and ready to deliver. Esperanza's parents, Ramona and Sexto Ortega, stood nearby. Mama, tall and elegant, her hair in the usual braided wreath that crowned her head, and Papa, barely taller than Mama, his graying mustache twisted up at the sides. He swept his hand towards the grapevine, signaling Esperanza. When she walked towards the arbors and glanced back at her parents, they both smiled and nodded, encouraging her forward. When she reached the vines, she separated the leaves and carefully grasped a thick stem. She put the knife to it, and with a quick swipe, the heavy cluster of grapes dropped into her waiting hand. Esperanza back to Papa and handed him the fruit. Papa kissed it and held it for all to see. La cocha, said Papa, harvest. Ole, ole! A cheer echoed around them. The campesinos, the field workers, spread out over the land and began the task of reaping the fields. Esperanza stood between Mama and Papa, with her arms linked to theirs, and admired the activity of the workers. Papi, this is my favorite time of the year, she said, watching the brightly colored shirts of the workers slowly moving among the arbors. Wagons rattled back and forth from the fields to the big barn where the grapes would be stored until they went to the winery. Is the reason because when the picking is done, it will be someone's birthday and time for a big fiesta? Papa asked. Esperanza smiled. When the grapes delivered their harvest, she always turned another year. This year, she would be 13. The picking would take 3 weeks, and then, like every other year, Mama and Papa would host a fiesta for the harvest and for her birthday. Marisol Rodriguez, her best friend, would come with her family to celebrate. Her father was a fruit rancher, and they lived on the neighboring property. Even though their houses were acres apart, they met every Saturday beneath a holm oak on a rise between the two ranches. Her other friends, Chita and Bertina, would be at the party too, but they lived further away, and Esperanza didn't see them as often. Their classes at St. Francis didn't start again until after the harvest, and she couldn't wait to see them. When they were all together, they talked about one thing, their quinceaneras, the presentation parties they would have when they turned 15. They still had 2 more years to wait, but so much to discuss. The beautiful white gowns they would wear, the big celebration where they would be presented, and the sons of the richest families who would dance with them. After their quinceanera, they would be old enough to be courted, marry, and become las patronas, the head of their households, rising to the positions of their mothers before them. Esperanza preferred to think, though, that she and her someday husband would live with Mama and Papa forever, because she couldn't imagine living anywhere other than El Rancho de las Rosas, or with any other servants, or without being surrounded by the people who adored her. I hope you enjoyed the story and that you are going to read the rest of it on your own. You can find it on Destiny Discover. You can go to the ebooks collection, or you can just do a search. I have the book available in English and in Spanish, so please go to Destiny Discover and check it out.